Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Dimensions in Text webinar. My name is Nick, and I will be doing the presentation with you today. Just like all of our previous webinars, everybody will be on mute. So if you do happen to have any questions at any point during our class, please feel free to go ahead and enter those into the questions area. And at the end of the class, I'll go through and answer any questions that may have come up. Also, at the end of the class, I will be sending out an email that will contain a document that's going to cover everything that we're going to be talking about in today's class. So should you want to try this out on your own, you can do that. And if you happen to have any questions while doing that, you can reach out to our support department. We're open from Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and we'd be happy to help you out with any questions you may have. So again, today's class is on dimensions in text, and we're actually going to be going through a couple of different ways of adding in text and dimensions to both your model and your worksheet views in Envisioneer. The first things we're going to be taking a look at is looking at the dimension settings. We're also going to be looking at adding in our dimensions, adding in our text, and then we're going to be adding in our roof text as well. So the first thing we want to talk about are dimensions. So there are a number of dimension tools and dimension settings to accomplish quick and easy annotation of a set of drawings in Envisioneer. Underneath your dimension settings, which you can find underneath Settings, and then underneath Document Settings, on the left-hand side, you'll find Dimension Auto Exterior and Dimension Auto Interior. We're going to select the Dimension Auto Exterior option. So before you are inserting your views of your model onto a worksheet, drawing sheet, you want to take advantage of the automated dimensioning tools found in the model view environment. In this setting dialog, we have many different tools that allow, or many different settings that are available that will aid in matching your current office standards for dimensioning in Envisioneer. Once we select the Dimension Auto Exterior underneath our document settings, you'll see that on the right-hand side, it displays all the different options that are available for the dimension strings themselves. Now again, these are for the auto exterior dimensions, so all the dimensions that are going to appear on the exterior of your model. We give you the ability to show the overall, the projections, the openings, the interior walls, and angled walls. By default, or depending on what you have set up in your template, you will have the three options here that we see selected. If you know you're going to be drawing angled walls in the particular design you're working on, you will want to make sure you select the angled walls option. This will make sure that any angled wall gets a dimension on an angle as well. The interior option will show where all of the interior walls are on your exterior dimension strings. So some people do like to show where the interior walls break an exterior wall, so they will show that dimension on the exterior strings. And if you select that option, over here in the bottom right-hand corner, you get the ability to choose how you want that interior dimension to be displayed on the exterior dimension string. Is that going to be to the leading or trailing edge of the surface of the interior wall, to the leading or trailing edge of the core, so the framing of that wall, or is it just going to be right to the center of the wall itself? So again, this is only relevant if you are going to be adding in the interior walls on your dimension strings. We're going to uncheck that. We don't want that to show up on our dimension strings. So we're going to make sure that interior walls and angled walls are turned off. We're then going to see the dimension line distances. And underneath the dimension line distances, it gives you the ability to adjust how your dimension lines are going to be spaced when they're inserted. So the initial offset that we see is going to be 4 feet. Any subsequent dimension string that we add in is going to be 2 feet from that initial offset. Again, if you have your own office standards, you can adjust the dimensions here to suit what is going to be relevant in your drawing in your office. Next, we have extension lines. Now the extension lines by default extend all the way to the corner with a bit of a gap between the dimension string and the edge of the model itself. You can also have your dimension strings terminate in a straight line. So you can select this option here, and then all your dimension strings will just terminate at a straight line. We're going to go back to the extension lines option. We then give you the ability to adjust how you want your openings to be dimensioned. Are you dimensioning to the center of the opening, or are you dimensioning to the actual opening itself? If you're dimensioning to the opening itself, you have a couple of further controls that you can add in. So it'll show you the width of the window, and you can say, well, I also want to add the height of the window in for this particular option as well. So it will show you the width, and then with this selected, it will show the height of the window. Now, the separation that you use for that designation can be chosen from the drop-down list. So in here, we have the ability to show the width and then the / and the height. We can do the width dash height, width times height, or a multi-line option, which would be width over height. So again, you have the choice of how you want this to be displayed. But again, you only really need to show this if you aren't looking to be adding in marks or window or door schedules. These options will show you those heights and widths anyways. So again, choose according to how you want your plans to be depicted. But if you do want to show that, it is there with a checkbox. Underneath that, we have the Dimension Auto Interior. So again, on the left-hand side, we're just going to select the Dimension Auto Interior. Now, with the Dimension Auto Interior, anytime you draw a straight line through your model, it's going to include all of the dimension lines that follow that line that you've drawn in. How that line is going to show the dimensions is going to be relative to what you have selected here. So here we can see we are right now by default going from surface to surface. So any interior surface to interior surface, I'm going to see the width of the room that way. So drywall to drywall, plaster to plaster, whatever the material is you're using for your walls, that's what it's going to dimension to. You can also go right to the trailing edge of the core or the leading edge of the core. So this is going to be to the framing of the wall. So you'll ignore the drywall finish and you'll go from framing to framing. Or you can go right to the center of the wall. This will just dimension to the center of the wall that you're adding in. With the first two options, so leading edge to trailing edge or leading edge core to trailing edge core, you can ignore the wall dimension option. Now, what this feature does is when I draw in my dimension, it's going to dimension from one room surface or from one framed wall to the next framed wall. Then it's going to include the thickness of the wall, and then it's going to continue on with the next room. So I'll see the room dimension, let's say 12 feet, then 3.5 inches or 4.5 inches, depending on what I'm dimensioning for the wall thickness. And then again, the next room dimension. If I don't want to see the actual thickness of the wall in here, it's going to be repeated multiple times, and it's just going to be information that I'm going to have to delete multiple times. Then you can select the Ignore Wall Dimensions option, and this will prevent that wall thickness dimension from being added in. I typically have this checked because, again, I don't want to have to go through and delete out every instance of an interior wall being dimensioned in my design. So I typically just ignore it, and then I'll draw in or add in a single dimension to show the thickness of the wall, or I'll call it out as a note and say typical in my design. Once you've adjusted your dimensions, so you've adjusted your auto exterior to the way that you want, and you've adjusted your auto interior dimensions to be the way that you want, you can just simply select apply and then OK. And this will bring you back into your model. And now we're going to be talking about adding in our automatic dimensions. So the auto exterior dimension tool will automatically dimension the exterior walls of your design. By default, 3 dimension strings are created, one for your openings, one for your wall segments, and one for the overall dimensions on each side of the model, like we show in our dimension settings. To create your automatic dimensions, you're going to simply go up and you're going to select Tools, Dimensions, and then you're simply just going to click on Auto Exterior Dimensions. And this will very quickly add in all of your dimensions based on the settings that we have defined. So it's going to add in our overalls, our projections, and then our openings on each one. We have our initial 4-foot offset and then 2-foot offset off of the initial offset. So just by making those quick adjustments and setting it up in our settings, once we apply it to our model, it will very quickly drop in all the appropriate dimensions based on where we want them to go. We can also add in our interior dimensions. So if I want to show my auto interior dimensions, so again, we're going to go up to Tools, Dimensions, and we're going to select the auto interior dimension. And when I select the auto interior dimension, I mentioned that you have to draw a line in. So in Envisioneer, we need to know where you want this dimension string to be displayed. So it's not as automatic as the exterior where it's just one click. Here we need to know where do you want these dimension strings to be laid out. So I'm going to pick 2 points, and I usually go to the extremes. I go to the exterior side to the exterior side. So I always cut right through the entire space itself. And then I just simply left click to place in those dimensions. So by just clicking those 2 points, that line that was created, all the dimensions will now follow along that line. Because I had the ignore wall distances or wall dimensions, it ignored the thickness of the wall there, the thickness of the wall there, and the thickness of the wall there. To show you what it does when you have that selected, I'm just going to go back to Settings, Document Settings, Drawing Dimension, Auto Interior. I'm going to uncheck the Ignore Wall Dimensions. I'm going to say Apply and then OK. And I'm going to drop in another dimension. So I'm going to go to Tools, Dimensions, Auto Interior, and let's cut a dimension through here. So now I'm going to see the thickness of the wall, the thickness of the room, thickness of the wall, all the way through. So all these dimensions will now become redundant, and I can get rid of the duplicates. And I can say, well, that's going to go and that's going to go. And what I can do here is I can take this dimension string and I can say, well, all of my walls are the same thickness. So I'm going to leave this initial one in, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to adjust the actual text for this. So I can just double click on this and sorry, I can just, I'll do that in the worksheet view. So in the worksheet view, I can edit the text and call it out as typical. I can move the text around so it's not sitting right directly in the middle of the wall. But again, we'll do that in the worksheet view. So now that I've added in all of the exterior dimensions and the interior dimensions, we're going to now look at creating room dimensions. So using the room dimension tool, you can very quickly calculate the dimensions of a room and insert the dimensions on your plan view. To do this, you're going to go up and you're going to select Tools, you're going to select Dimensions, and then you're going to select the Room Dimensions option. Your cursor is going to turn into what looks like a little crosshair with a box with an X through it. This is just the room dimension icon. And now we're just going to simply move into an area that we want to dimension. So I'm going to pick my first couple of points. I'm going to pick my first point in this bottom left-hand corner. I'm going to move to the width of the room to the bottom right-hand corner. And I'm going to left click again. So that's 2 left clicks. And now I'm defining the height or the width of the room itself. And I'm just going to go to this corner here. It's then going to bring up the room dimensions dialog box. Now, in this dialog box, you can edit the resulting dimensions if needed, or you can leave them as they are. You can also adjust the nomenclature of how you want this to be displayed. So do you want this to be width by length or length by width? So you can adjust again, how you want that to be displayed. You are also given the option of changing the dimension style. So how do you want this to be displayed using what type of font in your design? So if you have a set font style that you want to be using, you can adjust that here. I'm going to keep mine at standard, but again, just simply click on dimension style, and then you can choose any one of the options in here or create your own. And then I'm just going to say OK. And it then adds in the dimensions for that room. So I can now see that that room is 10 feet by 20 foot 3 inches. I'm going to right click and I'm going to select finish. You can also add it in text into your designs. So we're going to go in and we're going to select the text tools. So the text can be added in either your model or your worksheet space to annotate the plan of the model. The elevation, sections, details, and 3D views must have text added once the view is inserted on a working drawing sheet. For the purposes of our exercise, we're just going to be working in our worksheets. So the text tool inserts strings of text to a worksheet. So if we take a look at, and I want to show you why we're going to be doing this in our worksheets. So if I go up to Tools and Text, and I select Text, I want you to take notice of the text dialog. So I can adjust the text style. So again, what type of font do I want to be using, at what size? I can also control the justification. So either left, center, or right justified. I can also change and use imported text if I want to. So these are just text options that are added into a file. So all I have to do is simply click on one of them and I can add it in. So as an example, select kitchen, load it in, say OK, and then over here is going to be the kitchen. And it will just drop in that text. I can also go Tools, Text, Text, and I can check the multiple insert option. And with the multiple insert option selected, I can insert multiple text strings simultaneously. So I can go in here and say, what do I want this room to be? I'm going to call this the living room. So I'm just going to go down here. I'm going to find living room, and I'm going to load that in. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to drop in the word living room. And you can then continue on and add in all the different text that you want for your design. And then once you're done, you simply select cancel, and it ends the command, and you can see all the text that's been added in. Now, if we go to our worksheets and we want to add in text, so I'm just going to click on a worksheet tab here, and I'm just going to go to floor plan. And under the floor plan tab, we're now moving out of the 3D modeling environment, and we're now working in the 2D modeling environment. And you're going to notice that the text tools in here have a little bit more control to what they can do and how they can be displayed. So if I go back up and I select Tools, Text, and Text in the working drawing sheets, you can now see I can adjust not only the font that's going to be used, I can adjust the size, the color, I can apply a backfill color, I can bold, italic, or underline it. I can also use my center, left, and right justifications. And I can again still use the import tools to import text that I want to be placed in. So depending on what you want to show in your text, you can adjust in more detail in your working drawing sheets than you can in your model views. I'm just going to click cancel on that real quick. And I'm just going to add in a smart view here so we can see it. So I'm just going to go up and say define smart view. And I'm just going to drop in our floor plan, and we're going to leave it all as it is. We're going to say insert, and we're going to drop that in. So again, if I want to annotate this, tools, text, and text, we're going to leave everything as it is here, and I'm just going to add in a couple of different options in here. We're going to add in dining room and say okay, and we'll drop that text in. So it looks the exact same, depending on what you want the text to display. Now, I did mention that we give you the ability to make adjustments. So when I inserted this floor plan in as a smart view, it's all one block. So if I click on it, everything is added in as a block itself. So if I want to edit, say, the text or this dimension over here, I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to select the Edit Definition option. This brings me inside the block, and I'm now able to select the individual text of the elements inserted. So right here, I can select this 7¼ inches, and I have over here the option to override. So right now it's blank, it's just using what the actual dimension is, but I want this to say 7¼ inches, and then I just want to go in and type in typical. And I'm just going to go over here and then just click, and it now shows me the 7¼ typical. So that just tells me that every wall in this drawing is going to be that size. Same with this 6½ inches. Again, I want to show that as a typical interior wall dimension. So I'm just going to go in and type in typical, and it now denotes it that way. You can show your wall dimensions in this manner, or you can add a note in the bottom of your title block. And I'm just going to click escape here to exit out. And I can put a note down here as text, and I can just go in tools, text, and text. And I can say cap locks on, all exterior walls are 7¼ 7¼ unless otherwise stated. And then I can drop in a new line. So I'm just going to hold my shift key down and press enter, and I can go all interior walls are 6½ inches unless otherwise stated. And then all I have to do now is say okay, and I can drop in that text string, and it will show me that text here. And I can shrink the box down, and it will break it up for me so that I can see just the text that I want. There we go. And I can adjust it that way. I can also go in and not sure why I didn't add it in. Oh, maybe I just have to do enter. Oh, there you go. Sorry, don't shift enter, just press enter, and then it will add that in. So again, just to reiterate that one, that was my mistake. We're going to go back in here, and we're just going to, so when I wanted to create a new line, don't need to press shift enter, you can just press enter. And that will start a new line, and then you can just, again, type in all interior walls are 6½ inches unless otherwise stated. So there's a bunch of different ways to denote how you want something to be dimensioned in your designs. You can add the actual dimension strings in, or you can drop a note in so that way they can see it, and then you don't have the need to show all these extra little dimensions in your design. Next, we're going to be looking at descriptive text. So let's add some text in with the leader arrow to a front elevation indicating the type of roofing material that is going to be used. So I'm going to go over to my elevation tab, And I'm going to drop in an exterior elevation of our design. So I'm just going to go up and select Define Smart Views. And I'm just going to grab the elevation tab. And I'm just going to turn this into a pattern view. So I'm going to change the display mode to be patterned. And then I'm just going to say Insert. And I'm going to drop that into our design right here. So with this view added in, I can now use descriptive text to start to annotate this view. So I'm going to zoom in on a plan, on our elevation, and I want to call out the actual roof as an example. So I'm going to go up to, and I'm going to select Tools, Leaders, because I want the leader line to show up, and I'm going to say Description with Leader. And I'm just going to left click on that. I'm going to select the edge of the roof. And it's now going to ask me, if I look down in my commander down here, it's going to say pick first insertion point. Where do I want the leader line to start? And I'm going to start that leader line right here in the middle of the roof. Now, by default, it's going to try and snap it to 90-degree angles because I have ortho turned on. I want my leader line to show up on an angle, so I'm going to press F6 on my keyboard to activate the angle snap command. And I can now control the angle at which I want that leader line to be displayed. So I can go 45, 30, 15, again, just denoting how I want that leader line to be added in. And I like to keep my leader lines lining up with certain edges. So I kind of keep it where the leader line breaks is going to be on the edge of my model. So I'm going to left click there. And then I can type in a distance of how far I want the leader line extension to be. So I can say, well, I want that to be 4 feet. And if you look down here in the distance, it'll tell you how far you're moving it. So I'm just going to type in 4 feet and I'm going to press enter. And once I press enter, it now calls out that roof. So it's calling it out as a 612 slope hip roof with shingles. It's calling out that name by just referencing whatever we added into our design. So if I go back into model and I hover over top of the roof, you can see that my tooltip shows 6/12 slope hip roof dash shingles. That is what it's calling out because that is what is the name in the catalog. So however you type this out in the catalog is how it's going to be displayed in your drawing sheets as well. So again, you're going to see that 6/12, and then you're going to see the slope roof dash shingles. Same with the walls. If I go in and select Tools, Leaders, Description with Leader, click on the edge of a wall, click in the design. Again, I'm going to do this at a set angle, which was 15, lining it up with the edge of the roof, bringing it over 4 feet, press enter. I'm seeing that 2x6 cement board panel as my next text option in that design. When I inserted this elevation, I skipped over the datum lines, but I do want to point the elevation datum line feature out for you. So whenever you're inserting an elevation or a section view onto a worksheet, you do have the option of including your datum lines at key points, such as the floor level and your wall height of each location. So if I select that smart view that I added in, that's my elevation view, I'm just going to go back in and select Redefine. Over here on the left-hand side, I have datum lines. And by default, it's going to ask me, do I want to show datum lines? Yes. Well, what location do you want, or what do you want to show those datum lines for? And I want to show that for, let's just keep it simple here. We're going to go and say floor level, yes. Wall height, and we're going to say yes. So I'm just going to add in those two options there. Now it's going to ask me, if I scroll down, what locations do you want to include these datum lines on? And right now you can see all my locations are set to no. So that's why no datum lines displayed. Even though it says yes up here, it doesn't know where to put them. So I want to make sure I denote what location needs the datum lines. And I want that to be just on the ground floor for right now. I'm not going to worry about the foundation. So I'm just going to say yes to the ground floor. I also have a settings option. And when I click on the settings option, this just gives me further control to denote how I want my datum lines to be displayed. So what layer do I want them to be on, which we're going to use the CAD layer by default. The datum marks is the little icon that you're going to see on the ends of the datum lines. It looks like a little target. That is what we're calling a datum marker, and we want that to show up on both sides. You can again adjust this to be both. You can adjust it to be left or right. How do we want our leader lines to be displayed? Do we want the leader lines on both sides? What do we want the length to be? What color? And then we can define the line weight and the line type as well. Same with the datum lines themselves. Yes, we want them to be on. We want the extension to be 1 foot. We want it to be red. And again, we're choosing our line type and our line weight. And then we also give you the ability to control the text that you're going to see. So the description, so what location we're working on, is going to be above and to the right. The elevation, which is going to be your dimensions themselves, is going to be below and then to the right. The style is going to be a dimension style. So again, we're referencing a font style that's going to have a font size, a font type, and a font color. And then we're also going to be adjusting, we also give you the ability to adjust the alignment. So right now we're going to have it set to center. So if I just say okay to all that, and I just update that smart view, we're now going to see the data marker on both the left and right side. So that's that data marker I was referring to. The text is above and the dimension is below it. And we can see our datum lines denoting how we want that to be displayed. You can also add in your own dimensions here. So if I want to show the actual height between the two, so I don't have to do the math here, I can just simply go over here and say Tools, Dimensions, Linear Dimension, and I can just simply say, well, from here to here is 8 foot 1 1/8 inches. And I'm just going to drop in that dimension string. And I now know that that is the true height of my wall. And I know that is the correct height. So if I go back into my model view and I take a look at my building locations, my wall height should be 8 foot 1 1/8. So going back into my elevations, we're going to see that true height of 8 foot 1 1/8. The next thing I want to show you is the roof slope marker tool. So a roof symbol indicates the slope of a roof. When inserting a roof symbol, you first define its properties, then you can click to insert it on your worksheet. To insert a roof symbol, we're going to go in and we're going to select Draw, and then we're going to select Details, and then we're going to select the roof symbol option. And in here, it's going to ask you to define the roof slope symbol. So it's going to ask you to choose the slope type. It's going to ask you to choose the appearance, the length, and the alignment. So what we first want to do is we want to define the actual slope. If you know what the slope is, you can just simply type it in here. We're just going to say the slope here is 612 because we know that that is what the slope is. But if we don't know what the slope is, or we can't remember, or it's a different part of the roof and it may have a different slope, you can click on this little browse button and then you can zoom in and say, this is the roof that I'm trying to work with. So I'm going to start from here. And then we're going to pick the endpoint and we're going to go up to here. And it will automatically find out what that slope is. So it will pick it out for you. I tend to clean that up. If you leave the .00 in there, it will show as 6.00 over 12. And it becomes a little bit jumbled. So I do try to clean that up, rounding it to the nearest number if needed, or at least to 1 decimal place. So now we've got the slope type and the actual slope designated. So now how do we want this to be displayed, or what's the appearance to look like? Again, we're going to use the dimensions text style. That's going to be consistent throughout our design. That is what we use as our office standard. So we're going to keep that as our text style. But the length, I do want to adjust. I have found that the 1 foot designation does appear to be a bit small on the screen. So I typically just change this to be 2 feet, just double the size of it so that it looks a little bit more prominent on the elevation. Now, the alignment is the best way to describe this is what side do you want the text to be displayed on? So if we're looking at the this area here to show our roof slope symbol, so that means I want the text to be on the right side. So I want that 6 to show up over here, the 12 to show up on top. If I was dimensioning off the other side, then I would switch it to the left side so that the text was on the left side of the slope tool. And we'll look at that in just a moment. So again, we're going to leave it at right. We're going to say OK. And now attached to my cursor is that roof slope tool. And I can just drop in where I want that to go. So now I'm seeing the 6, and I'm seeing 6 over 12 with my slope tool showing that. If I go over here and I want to show the slope over here, so again, we're going to go up to Tools, Draw, Details, and Roof Symbol. If I leave this at the 1 foot, just so you can see the difference, and you can make the adjustment yourself, and this one again is going to be to the left side. And we're going to again make sure that that is the correct slope. So we're just going to go from here to here. And let's grab the wrong thing. So let's try that again. I'm going to zoom in from here to here. There we go. There's our 6. And we're just going to go in and make sure that that is 6, 1 foot, and then say OK. And if I zoom out, here you can see you get the correct sizing, but the actual marker looks a bit small. And that's my opinion on it. So that's why I double mine up, just to give it a little bit more of a prominent feel on the screen. But if you want to keep it that way, you can leave it at just 1 foot. But again, whatever side you want the text to be on, so if you want it to be on the left or the right, that is how you're going to figure out where the text should go, by just remembering whatever side you want the text to be on based on the slope of the roof. So that covers everything that I wanted to talk about in today's class. So I am going to open up the questions section. So if you do happen to have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in. I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, so I'm just going to go over a quick overview of review of what we've covered in today's class. So again, in today's class, we went through and we looked at how to add in your dimension settings. So being able to control how the dimensions are going to be displayed in your model, taking advantage of the automatic dimensioning tools of both your exterior and your interior dimension strings. We then went through and we added in our dimensions using the said auto exterior and auto interior tools. We then looked at how to add in text in not only our model view, but also in our worksheet environments. And we looked at the differences between the two environments, how you have a bit more control over how text is going to be displayed in your worksheets than you do in your models. And then we also looked at adding in our datum lines and adjusting how those can be displayed. And then we looked at adding in our roof slope tool so that we can designate what the slope of our roofs are going to be. So again, I'm just going to pause here for just a moment just to see if there's any questions or if anyone's finishing up a question. While you're doing that, I'm just going to reiterate, I will be sending out an email at the end of our class that covers everything that we've talked about today. And if you happen to have any questions while doing this on your own, please don't hesitate to give our support department a call. They'll be happy to help you out. All right, perfect. Well, there doesn't appear to be any questions at this point, so I do want to thank everybody for attending today. I do look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. So thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.